This is the Athlete Within podcast. I'm Kate Allgood. This podcast is about understanding what actually happens internally when you compete, especially when the pressure rises. Because performance isn't just about what you're capable of, it's about what you can access when it matters. And over time, learning how to stay steady under pressure so you can play freely. There's a point where pressure stops feeling random. At first, it can seem like it just shows up in certain situations. Bigger games, important moments, times where more feels on the line. And because of that, it's easy to assume that pressure is coming from the outside, from the situation itself, from what's at stake, from everything happening around you. But over time, if you start to pay closer attention, something becomes more noticeable. It's not just that pressure shows up, it's how it shows up. For some athletes, the moment pressure rises, there's a strong need to prove something, to show they belong, that they're capable, that they deserve to be there. And when things don't go well, it can feel personal quickly, like something is being exposed. For others, it shows up as a need to feel in control, to know what's going to happen, to feel certain in what they're doing. And when the game becomes unpredictable, or things don't go according to plan, that's when the pressure starts to build. For others, it's tied more closely to capability. There's a question underneath the moment. Can I actually do this? Am I good enough in this situation? And when that question is there, even quietly, it changes how the moment feels. And then for others, it connects to identity, to who they are as an athlete, what this says about them, what happens if they don't perform the way they expect themselves to. What's important to understand is that these aren't separate from performance. They're underneath it. They shape how pressure is experienced, how the moment feels, and how you respond within it. And while all of these can exist to some degree, most athletes will recognize that one or two tend to show up more consistently than others. One or two tend to drive their experience. And once you start to see that, something begins to shift, because pressure stops feeling like one general thing and becomes more specific. It starts to make more sense. Instead of asking, why do I feel this way in big moments? The question starts to change into, what is this moment activating for me? And that's a very different place to be. Because what's underneath these patterns isn't random. They're protective. They're trying to help you stay in a position that feels secure, accepted, in control, capable, aligned with how you see yourself. They're trying to prevent something that feels important from being threatened. And because of that, they don't just show up in competition. They show up whenever something feels like it matters. That's why certain moments feel heavier than others, even within the same game. Why one mistake can feel easy to move on from, and another can stay with you. Why one situation feels manageable, and another feels overwhelming. It's not just the moment itself, it's what the moment touches. And when something important feels like it could be affected, your system responds. That's when pressure starts to build. And as that pressure builds, it doesn't just sit there quietly. It changes things. It changes how you see the moment. It changes what you notice. It changes how you think. And that's when self-doubt starts to show up. Not always loudly, but in ways that shift your experience. A second guess, a hesitation, a thought that pulls your attention away from what's in front of you, a sense that you need to be certain before you act. And what's important to recognize is that self-doubt in those moments isn't coming out of nowhere. It's coming from that activation. Something feels important, the system tries to protect it, pressure builds, and that pressure changes how you relate to what's happening. This is also where confidence starts to make more sense, because for a lot of athletes, confidence feels inconsistent. It feels like it's there one moment and gone the next, and that creates even more frustration. But confidence doesn't just disappear randomly. It's connected to how stable things are internally. When your system is more stable, attention is clearer, decisions are cleaner, and confidence feels more available. When pressure increases and attention starts to shift, confidence often feels like it drops at the same time, not because your ability changed, but because your access to it did. And this is where a lot of athletes get stuck, because they experience self-doubt or a drop in confidence, and they try to fix those things directly. They try to feel more confident, to eliminate doubt, to get back to how they were feeling earlier. But those are often outcomes of something deeper that's already been activated. And without understanding that, it can feel like you're constantly trying to fix something that keeps returning. What starts to change this is not removing these drivers, but recognizing them, seeing how they show up for you, and understanding which situations tend to activate them, because that pattern is usually consistent. There are certain moments where things feel heavier, certain situations where your thinking changes more quickly, certain types of mistakes that are harder to move past. And when you start to notice those patterns, the experience becomes less confusing, less random, less like something is just happening to you, and more like something you can understand. And from there, you have a different starting point, because instead of reacting to the moment as if it's new every time, you begin to recognize it. You begin to see this is one of those moments. Not in a way that pulls you further into your head, but in a way that gives you context, that allows you to understand what your system is responding to without immediately getting pulled into it. And that creates a small amount of space. And that space matters, because without it, the reaction tends to be automatic. The pressure builds, the thinking shifts, and you move with it. But with even a small amount of awareness, you don't have to follow it in the same way. You can recognize that something is being activated. You can feel the pressure without immediately trying to control everything within it. You can notice the shift without making it mean something about you. And from there, you can bring your attention back to what's actually in front of you. The next play, the next movement, the next decision. Not perfectly, but enough to stay connected. And over time, that awareness builds. Not in a way that eliminates pressure, but in a way that changes how you move through it. Because now you're not just reacting to the moment, you're understanding what's underneath it. And that understanding starts to stabilize things. Not all at once, but gradually. As you begin to recognize your patterns more consistently, your response to them becomes more intentional. And that's really the shift. Not removing pressure, not removing self-doubt, not removing these drivers, but understanding them well enough that they don't run everything in the same way. Because when they run everything, the moment gets shaped around them. But when you can see them, even briefly, you create just enough separation to stay connected to what matters most. And that's where everything we're building towards starts to come together. Because now it's not just about managing the moment, it's about understanding yourself within it. And that's what allows your performance to become more stable over time. Not because the moment changed, but because your relationship to them does. And that's what we'll keep building as we move forward. If something in this episode resonated with you, or helped you better understand your own experience in competition, then that awareness matters. Because the more clearly you understand what's happening internally under pressure, the more intentionally you can begin to work with it. And that's what we'll keep building on throughout this season. This is The Athlete Within.